Special Projects Group then became an entity unto itself. It was given a place in the flight test area and now began to work on what in fact Frost had started to look at as the ideal shape, a completely flying circular disc.
I had no idea that there was such a thing as the Special Projects Group, because it was very classified, top secret and all that.
Oh, we had guards at all the entrances all the time, and you had to have a special badge, with a special colored dot on it to allow you into the special project area. I was a senior designer on the special projects. I started working on the 606A as a supersonic design for the United States Air Force.
And the design he was after was in fact the most coveted designs of all aviation designer, a completely all-enclosing bodied aircraft, a flying disc.
Everything Frost had in mind was always a circle. He never wanted to change the plan for me. I think it was ideal because it was a vertical takeoff.
But in truth, the fantastic supersonic flying saucer of Frost's imagination was a long way from becoming reality. His design was one of the purest uses of the Coanda, or flying saucer effect yet, and had 6 powerful jets which sucked the air over the saucer shape. These provided the saucer with its lift and its maneuverability. But testing this craft and its 6 powerful jets was not going to be easy or safe. Ray Takuchi was put in charge of building a full-scale test rig.
And it was just a 6-sided shape, and then we put we built the rig on top of it. I mean the inner portion of the 606A on there with the Viper engines, and also the fan.
Each rotating assembly is comprised of an upper and lower ring of compressor blades and a central ring of turbine blades. The turbine blades are aligned with an exhaust duct, which is incorporated in the stationary structure.
Another Special Projects engineer was Ken Lockwood.
I was a performance engineer. I had been working on supersonic projects in England, and when I went into the first time I was kind of incredulous at the project. It was so unconventional.
Each section houses an Armstrong-Siddeley Viper engine, which serves as a gas generator to drive a centrally located turbine compressor combination.
It is in fact a full-size, full-scale aircraft built into a concrete building to be testing the engines and systems of what will in fact be Weapons Systems 606A.
The saucers were supposed to have tremendous performance because the engine was huge. It was almost 30 feet in diameter, and it would have produced so much thrust that the aircraft could have taken off straight up and flown at 2,000 to 3,000 miles an hour, according to their estimates.
Air enters the compressor, and after passing through the inner wing is discharged through a series of metered apertures.
Then came the testing period. What they were trying to do was tie down one of the most powerful supersonic aircraft ever built. It was a daunting task.
As a safety precaution during the operation of the rig, the rotor section is enclosed within a steel guard.
When John Frost in fact has one run away with in fact full power, the building is cleared in the imminent threat of in fact an explosion. Once the fuel cells in the aircraft would blow up, the entire building would in fact be destroyed.
It was a terrifying moment. The engine was out of control and about to destroy the entire saucer project.
People disappeared around the back of the building except for one person.
One of the engineers that happens upon the scene walks into the building and simply removes the fuel line from the runaway engine. It gradually comes to a stop.
After that it was deemed rather dangerous to run it, so they abandoned that.
But things were also beginning to go badly wrong for the Avro Corporation itself. In 1959, its main conventional contract, a massive project to build a supersonic jet, the Arrow, was suddenly cancelled and the company went into financial meltdown. John Frost was removed from his own project. The maverick genius behind the Avro flying saucer left the company forever and moved with his family to New Zealand. But the American Air Force were far from happy. They still wanted a saucer, and if Avro wouldn't build it for them, they'd have it built themselves. John Frost's supersonic flying saucer, like so many others, was about to disappear into the blackest recesses of the American military machine.
Well, last I heard was 606A went to Bell Aircraft in Fort Erie, I believe it was.
From then on, all that remained was rumours. In the years following the disappearance of Frost's saucer, sightings, many laughably unconvincing, continued to grow. But some turned out not to be a product of fevered imaginations at all. The CIA's U-2 spy plane was a classic black project. It operated in absolute secrecy for over 8 years and would have remained secret to this day had it not been for the dramatic events of 1960, when U-2 pilot Gary Powers was shot down over Russia and then held for 2 years before being traded for a Russian spy.
And the CIA's own history of the U-2 program makes the statement that, quote, 50% of the UFO sightings were caused by the U-2.
The U-2 flew on the edge of space, higher than anyone believed a plane could fly. Hardly surprising then that any glimpse, particularly from another plane, would provoke wonder and fear. But if the U-2 debacle proved one thing, it was that unless your secret craft actually crashes, alien flying saucers make a fantastic cover story. And if your secret craft actually is a flying saucer, you can keep the pretense up for years.
You frighten me when you talk like that.
Frost's saucer disappeared into the intense blackness of official secrecy. And America's amateur UFO spotters moved up a gear.
In Washington, a private unofficial group known as NICAP, National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, called a news conference and reopened an old argument with the Air Force.
NICAP was the main voice of the alien flying saucer theory. It was led by the pulp fiction writer who had first launched the idea at that extraordinary press conference back in 1952. 14 years later, he was still hunting aliens.
NICAP's director, Major Donald E. Kehoe, a retired Marine Corps officer, insisted that the Air Force knew more than it was telling.
We are being observed by some type of device which is ahead of us, far ahead of us, and is probably controlled by a highly advanced superior civilization.
And for the umpteenth time in as many years, the Air Force, called before a congressional committee, said it was hiding nothing. Air Force Secretary Harold Brown.
We have not been hiding anything.
It all seemed so straightforward. The amateurs accused the military of covering up an imminent alien invasion, and the military deny it. So no one looks at the third possibility, that the UFOs are military craft. How lucky for the government that these enthusiastic amateurs were so well organized.
We believe that UFOs are real, that they are from outer space, and that they are intelligently controlled.
Except their organization wasn't a product of luck at all. NICAP was led by men from the shadows. Board members included Roscoe Hillenkoetter, the CIA's first director, and a CIA operative, Bernard J.O. Carvello. NICAP's first manager was Nicholas de Rochefort of the CIA's Psychological Warfare Division, and when Kehoe resigned as chairman of NICAP, he was replaced by Joseph Bryan, also of the CIA's Psychological Warfare staff. But what of Kehoe himself?
These things were interplanetary spaceships.
Was he a genuine believer in alien flying saucers? Or did he have any connection with America's military research into German flying saucer technology? One man who might know was the German saucer engineer Andreas Epp, who'd gone over to the Americans. In an interview recorded in 1997, he came up with a remarkable answer to this question.
Do you think the Americans wanted to keep your flying disc secret?
From the beginning, from the very beginning. Major Kehoe was at the Pentagon, in the UFO department, and they found out that Germany was building flying discs.
But whoever was behind the campaign to propagate the alien myth, it was spectacularly successful. Nowhere more so than in the land of dreams, Hollywood. It even sparked a religion.
All our information comes through our leader, who is a yogi, who is in direct contact with space intelligences.
We are your friends. We are your friends. Please contact us.
Then, on the 11th of November 1987, they did. It all began when a successful businessman called Ed Walters saw a strange light above his garden. He grabbed his camera and took this photograph. It was the first of dozens of sightings over the next few years.
Oh my God! I'm gonna follow it down. I'm gonna follow it down.
When the still pictures were enhanced, they seemed to show something that looked remarkably like flying saucers. The saucers were witnessed by hundreds of people, from policemen to priests.
Look!
Some more excitable witnesses even suggested they'd met the aliens. But then one man saw the photographs and reached a rather different conclusion. And he knew exactly what he was talking about.
It's those doggone saucers again.
Gulf Breeze, Florida. 17 years ago, this was the location for one of the most sustained series of flying saucer sightings in American history. Most of the hundreds of people who saw them became convinced they were watching aliens. But one man thought differently.
Anytime that somebody says that there is something doesn't necessarily mean there was something. They have to be able to meet a scientific criterion of being real. Upon coming across the Gulf Breeze sightings, however, the configuration was radical enough that we could see up inside. And that was up inside was light, and it as though it was hot. And not only that, but it was circular in configuration.
Boyd Bushman thought he recognized what was powering these saucers, and he recognized it because he himself had worked on the technology. Bushman had spent 35 years in the forefront of weapons design, inventing the prototype of the Stinger missile before moving to Lockheed, at the heart of the American military saucer industry. While he was there, he and his team began experimenting with a radical new source of energy.
This is nothing more than 250 turns of number 30 wire, and we took the leads and plugged it into standard house current.
What?
And the design he was after was in fact the most coveted designs of all aviation designer, a completely all-enclosing bodied aircraft. a flying disc.
Everything Frost had in mind was always a circle. He never wanted to change the plan for me. I think it was ideal because it was a vertical takeoff.
But in truth, the fantastic supersonic flying saucer of Frost's imagination was a long way from becoming reality. His design was one of the purest uses of the Coanda, or flying saucer effect yet.
As the Special Projects Group, because it was very classified, top secret and all that.
Oh, we had guards at all the entrances all the time, and you had to have a special badge.
Special Projects Group then became an entity unto itself. It was given a place in the flight test area, and now began to work on what in fact Frost had started to look at as the ideal shape, a completely flying circular disc.
I had no idea that there was such a thing.
With the special colored dot on it to allow you into the special projects area. I was a senior designer on the special projects. I started working on the 606A as a supersonic design for the United States Air Force.